Hello, and welcome to another one of these fantastic events of our Nobody Investor Series. My name is Barry O'Reilly. I'm the Chief Incubation Officer at Nobody Studios. And over the course of the last few weeks, we've been having great fun spending time with a number of investors in Nobody Studios, people who heard about our vision from the beginning and made that bold bet to get behind us, back us, and see what we can achieve. It's been a pleasure to share these stories with all the different people who have invested and been part of this journey from all over the world. And it's one of the unique things about Nobody. While the company might have been founded in North America, we have investors, contributors, builders all over the world. And today I'm delighted to be joined by one of the first people to really help us create that global footprint across what we were doing with Nobody's Juniors, Mr. Daniel Bernard. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Daniel. How are you doing?
I'm great, Barry. How are you doing? Great to be here.
Yeah, always. So, you're one of these sort of very unique and special people in our story at New Studios. You were one of our earliest investors, but a very unique sort of tilt on the type of investment and engagement that you've brought to the studio. Instantly, you were not someone who just wanted to write a check and cheer us on. You were someone who wanted to roll up their sleeves and be really active in helping us build out what Nobody is about. But even more specifically, helping us focus in a region that we're really passionate and curious about, which is the Middle East, Israel, and so forth. And it's been amazing to see you bring your skills to bear and your network, everybody you're involved with, to the studio. So a massive thank you for that. And I know I'm going to learn even more about your passion for that area, but also your huge passion and experience in building businesses, specifically in the sports industry. So for folks who don't know you or meeting you for the first time, can you share a little bit about your own entrepreneurial journey and what sort of got you started in the businesses that you're focused on today?
Sure. So for my accent, I think everyone can recognize that it's still British. I was born in London and I lived there till I was, I moved around a bit. I was in France and Spain and Italy. And then at the age of 24, I settled in Israel and I've been here ever since. And I've been very grateful for that. It's been a wonderful journey. And the thing that actually led me to Israel was part of the start of my entrepreneurial journey. It was a combination of two things. The major thing was I met this lovely young woman, an Israeli, and it can only be a woman involved. When you think
Always
about
a woman. That's it. That's what we like.
always be a woman dragging a man across the world somewhere else. And I met this lovely Israeli woman back in '99. And at that time, I was setting up my first ever business in the south of France, which turned out to be a complete failure. And I thank God for that every single day, because the fact that it failed taught me a hell of a lot about how not to build a small business. I actually have a lecture these days about how not to build a small business based on that experience. But I went back to London with my tail between my legs and didn't really know what to do. I had no money left on, and I certainly didn't have the guts to build something else. And I didn't want to get involved in corporate UK. And I couldn't get this Israeli girl out of my mind. So I thought, you know what, I'll take a one-way ticket to Israel and see what happens. And that's exactly what I did. And I went back on that ticket. And to this day, she's my wife, and I'm just a very, very blessed man. So that's what brought me to Israel, part of the entrepreneurial journey. And I've had a couple of other failures along the way, which have been fantastic learning curves. Thankfully, I've had a couple more significant successes than those failures, and they've all been in the sports industry. And once you've been doing something for about, it's the law of 10,000 hours, you do something over and over and over again, you become an expert. And so what's obvious to me in the sports industry is not for a lot of other people. That's where you find your edge. And so I've been working in the sports industry, and I'm now an active investor into the sports industry. Whether it's as an angel or via VCs that I work with. And it's a wonderful and privileged position to be in, having built companies, open companies, closed companies, and sometimes move to the board to see them scale up when someone far better than me knows how to take it forward. And that's been my entrepreneurial journey. It's all about sports. I honestly don't know how to do anything else. That's it. And so I try and focus on that. And it's a real fortune for me, because I get to live something that's my passion. I mean, anyone who works in the sports industry, we love it. It's a combined a mutual passion that we all have. And so I get to live my passion and my soul every single day in trying to affect people's lives through sports, and whether that's through investments or new businesses I try and build, or even social endeavors. I'm a very lucky man.
Yeah, no, and it shines through, like, your passion for what you're doing, right? Like, I know people call it work, but for someone like you, I feel like it's just you're living your dream. As you say, you feel you're fortunate every day, waking up and doing and enjoying what you're focused on, and I think it always brings a special type of energy to that. And that to me, as someone who's been working with you and getting to know you over the last few years, that just sort of shines through. But your focus again was really interesting in Nobody, where we have this notion where we knew we wanted to build global ambassadors, people who have great connections, great networks all around the world, because as a global first business, we knew we were going to have to connect with people in different parts of the world to tap into their expertise, to tap into their networks, their insights, to help us build companies that are going to be global first by their very design. And you were like really one of the first people, I think, that sort of took that, if you will, sort of mantle and started bringing it to us specifically in such an interesting area. You've written blogs about this, obviously, on Nobody Studios website, and continuously blog on your own personal sites about your experiences of building businesses in Israel, the Emirates. So can you share a little bit about your passion for that region? Because I think it's something that many people are curious about. They're probably, even myself, I've been educated by you, by just you sharing the ins and outs of how it's different, what's special about the region. So can you share a little bit about some of your insights of having someone who moved there, as you say, to find your beautiful wife and family there, but also the businesses that you've built there too as well?
Sure. So, I mean, every region has its characteristics. Every country has its characteristics. And if we think about business, it's become obvious to me over the course of time, and I know this is a value that Nobody holds so dear, which is one of the reasons I'm so ingrained in this, is the power of diversity. If you've grown up building a business in an English way, whatever that means, there are pros and there are cons to that. You have a certain perspective in life. And if you can combine the strengths of the English way with the American way and the Israeli way, if you can piece together all the best and you get the best of diversity, then the magic can really happen. And I've been blessed with living in a few different countries. And so I know how to communicate. It's a real asset that I feel. It's one of the few things I really feel I have naturally, is I know how to communicate with a lot of different people. And I understand that where I'm looking at the world is just a small tranche. And so I need to interact and communicate with lots of other people to try and bring the best of those. There was one business I built which deliberately had offices in different places, because I knew I needed Eastern European development talent, and I knew I needed project management that was typical of Northern Europe, and I knew that I needed Salesforce in Middle East, and it was deliberate to try and get the best of a diverse type of characteristics. And so when we talk about the Middle East today, let's talk about the UAE first. I mean, the UAE is taking a fantastic lead step in being the gateway between the West and the GCC, and then beyond as well. Anyone who goes to Dubai and Abu Dhabi, those two cities are actually very different, but they have their platforms to allow the Western-minded businessman to really access the Middle Eastern world, the Arab world, and also the Asian world as a gateway. And the UAE are doing a fantastic job of that. It's a small country. We're talking about 10 million inhabitants, of which 90% are actually expats. There's only about 1 million Emiratis. And what they've done amazingly, in my opinion, is to drive the benefit from diversity, having the best of everyone come to the Emirates and bring a fantastic vibe to the place. And I think the timing is absolutely key. And the UAE is a place that I love visiting. I go there probably once every 2 months. In fact, if I say that, my wife will go, "No, you're actually there far off."
You're always telling me that.
Yeah. And it's got that power of diversity and the ability to accept everyone, which I am so keen on. And the timing is absolutely superb. And then you look at a place like Saudi Arabia, which is a much bigger country than the UAE. And because of various macro and micro parameters, the timing for Saudi, especially in the sports world, is unbelievable. In the Western world, we talk about downturn. I was in Saudi a couple of weeks ago. There's no thought of a downturn. It's completely the opposite. There's a lot of capital there, and there's a vision. There is a very, very clear vision and a government that wants to make this happen, and they are going all out. and it's to be applauded. The strides they're making in various verticals, and when I look at what they're doing in sport, they are driving innovation, and they are becoming a leader, a real leader. And I would recommend anyone to look at Saudi at the moment. I think the sports entertainment industry, any investment in Saudi in the sports entertainment industry right now is destined for success, just because of the drive that the government are giving it and the capital they've got to fund it. So, and then you think about Israel, where I'm based.
Yeah,
it's one of the high-tech powers of the world. So much of the technology, and much more than a lot of people realize, comes out of this tiny little country, which has lived this survival for so long. It's unbelievable. It's really incredible. You've got R&D centers for the biggest tech companies in the world are based in Israel, and then startup culture in Israel. We've got more unicorns coming out of Israel than almost any other country, apart from, I think, the US and China. Per capita, we've absolutely got more unicorns than anyone else. And so when you think about the advantages that come out of Israel, this huge amount of technological expertise, combine that with capital from other cultures, combine that with the drive that the government's coming with, I mean, this is extremely powerful. And that's what I'm talking about, is bringing the best of the best from different cultures, different areas, to create something of huge value.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic to hear you share these stories, and already you can see folks in the live stream just sort of enjoying hearing your knowledge. And again, it's one of these things about what we love about your contribution at Nobody Studios, right? You're bringing this amazing expertise, this local knowledge, this insight that many of us don't have, that we're learning, and bringing that to the table, adding it to the sort of talent and the insight that we have as studios is one of the most fascinating parts about it. So to help people understand your sort of Nobody Studios adventure, if you will, like, tell us a little bit about how did you discover Nobody? What was your sort of aha moment about how you came across what we're doing and decided this is something that you wanted to get involved with?
So this was back in early 2021, I think. And like I said before, timing's everything. Back in 2021, I think a lot of us had a bit more space in our minds to just think and be open about things. I think we've all rushed back into this sort of pre-COVID run around the world again. I know I have. And I was approached by the head of business development for Nobody, Jason Kolker, who is a wonderful, wonderful young man who I really get on very, very well.
The ultimate connector. Yeah, this guy.
He really is. I'll tell you about how he's even since, and he's become a great friend as well. He's a superb gentleman, he really is. And he reached out to me cold. I didn't know Jason before, as an investor. And he said, I'd love to introduce you to Mark McNally, Chief Nobody. And I loved the concept of Nobody as just the word. It embraces so much of what Nobody is about. And the fact that Mark, 14 startups behind him, an unbelievably experienced guy, calls himself Chief Nobody. It's the epitome of the fact that the individual is not important. It's being able to work together for a greater goal. I love that. And I said to Jason right at the beginning, I said, listen, I'm a sports investor. I'm not going to invest in anything else. And he says, that's totally fine. Just meet Mark, and who knows what potential there is to work together, collaborate. I said, sure. And I met Mark, and we got on. We hit it off like this immediately. And the reason was because we just saw the world in a similar way. That was the main thing. At the end of the day, you try and find people who look at the world in the same way as you do, with similar values. You're trying to do the same sort of thing. None of us are 20 years old anymore. And you get to a certain stage where it's more about the values that you can combine with than the numbers on a spreadsheet. And you realize that. And we got on very, very well. So I had another call with Mark, and then another call. We're just getting on, family, and this is great. And I kept on saying, but I'm a sports investor. I'm not going to invest. And he said, that's fine. I just like shooting the breeze with you. I was like, okay. And then he did a very, very clever thing. He invited me to be a fly on the wall at one of the leadership meetings.
I remember this. Yeah, so good.
And so I sort of just joined the Zoom call. And what happened there was I was all of a sudden exposed to, I don't know how many people on that call, maybe 12 people. And what I saw was a group of unbelievably impressive people, published authors like yourself, and seasoned entrepreneurs, and people who have worked at the highest levels of massive companies for decades. And so I'm looking at really excellent and capable people, but then I looked at the collaboration, the communication between the group. And I've been around, I've built companies, I've managed companies, and I've got a certain way that I like to work. And all of a sudden I saw something that was exactly what I like. There was zero ego. There was no ego in the room whatsoever. There was no politics, and this is rare in today's world, to have a zero politics. No one's jockeying for position. No one's trying to get, maybe I'll say this, maybe I'll say that. It was pure collaboration. And it was wonderful. It was getting things done. And you had Tiffany sort of making sure that she's the glue, tying everything together, and Mark as chief nobody. And it was immediately, so you're going to do that and we'll do that. And yeah, next. And I loved it. I think it took me about 10 minutes to call Mark after, go, right, I'm in. Why not? It made sense to me when you've got a combination of superbly talented individuals with the values that I hold dear and a method of working that just gets ego out of it, and we're just looking at a higher goal. I'm all in. I said, well, I'm not all in. I didn't put my whole net worth into it. Nobody's doing that. But I was in for a nice thing.
Not yet, Daniel. Not yet. Exactly. But no, and this is the thing that's really important to hear and fantastic to hear. So thank you for sharing that. Right. Like we try hard to be open with people, to give them an insight about what it's like to be in the studio, and events like this, speaking to investors like yourself and people who are more than that, contributing to how our business is growing. We want people to feel like what it's like inside Nobody's Studios. So anyone who participates and be involved with us, whether they bring their talent, their influence, their capital, whatever they want to contribute to the studio, that they feel that same experience that you were sharing right there, because it is the magic of this. The way we're going to build companies in the future has to evolve. We have to create opportunity for more people to be able to contribute to these businesses. Technology will have such an impact on our future that if people aren't all able to contribute to it, diverse voices, different groups, we're going to miss out on opportunity. And again, I think you're just a great example of someone who sort of lives that value with it through their life, but also the businesses that you start to create. And you can see that this resonates with people, right? Like they love what we're doing in the studio. We get loads of these great comments, people listening to how diverse we are about what we think and how we build, and getting the best of everybody's knowledge to create something bigger than any one individual can. And this is really important to us, folks. So, as you're listening, please, this is not scripted. This is just me and Daniel talking live here, sharing our own experiences, which is key to us. So now you've been in this for a while now, Daniel, right? You're, again, a great example of someone who's rolled up their sleeves and brought your skills, your knowledge to bear. What have been some of the other standout moments for you as you've seen us evolve over especially the sort of last year and a half?
So I think that, first of all, if I go back to that period when I invested, and one thing I didn't mention as well, from an investment point of view, a lot of things made sense as well, apart from the people, which is absolutely the most important thing. But back then, Mark was one of the few people that I'd met that suddenly made sense to me, because I was looking, this is back early 2021, the venture world just looked ridiculous to me as an investor. And I was like, I don't get it. I felt sometimes I was the only person around the table that actually thought a business needs to earn money, and it was just everyone's clinking champagne glasses as the next massive valuation. And nothing made sense to me. I like a business to be built and to earn money and deliver value for its shareholders. And the venture world in 2021 just made little sense. And Mark was explaining why and the changes that he was proposing. And now, early 2023, we look back on that, he was totally right. We saw what happened in 2022. And it's like, wow, this guy has had the answers to what was going wrong back then and had a vision of how to correct that. And so I'm very proud to have been, gone along with that back at that stage. And so I think that from my point of view as an investor, all the predictions are coming true, absolutely. And the way venture should be run and be made much more efficient. There are so many inefficiencies in the venture world. I mean, it's unbelievable. Sometimes a company would deploy capital not to do with the business operations because maybe they've got too much dry powder, or they're being pushed to deploy because they've had LPs come in, or whatever the reason is. It's so often not to do with whether the business is going to make money, which is crazy. And
it's a special moment for us, I think, as well, right? Like, as you say, progressive is sort of our mentality, being frugal and aggressive, time and capital efficient, and then aggressive about how we go after these companies, but metering the funding, if you will, for them. So when we ideate, we put in a few $1,000s to get the idea down, to define the vision. Concepting it is to really test the market, launching it, bringing it to market, And we're building companies for $250,000 to get them in market, which is sort of unheard of. That pays for your pitch deck in Silicon Valley last year. And as you say, now when we hit this moment where valuations are going down, that's actually not a concern for Nobody Studios. Yeah. We're builders. We're building companies while the market is down. So in 12, 18 months, as it starts to return, all of our companies in our portfolio are maturing, which means they're fantastic, high quality deals that VCs will want to get a part of, or great acquisition targets for other businesses. Can they see we're growing and building these high quality companies? So right now, it doesn't matter to us about what the valuations in the market are. We're builders. And if you invest in builders, that means your products are going to be in the market as it returns. And that's a really exciting place for us to be. And you mentioned timing. I feel like timing is right on our side at the moment in terms of that opportunity.
Absolutely. And if I think about my own experience with the studio, I mean, when I got involved, and you say, you know, Nobody is this global operation. When I got involved, it was very, you know, focused on the US, you know, because of the people that were involved. But the aim was certainly there to go global. And I look, you know, coming up to 2 years later, and there's no doubt that this is happening. We've now got a hub in London. There was an acquisition of a great company in London, bringing in a very early stage startup called Thoughtformer, which is fantastic. Dr. Eric has moved over to London as well. You know, hubs are being built up, and I'm here in the Middle East, and we're expanding our connections here. There's no doubt in my mind that a year from now, we're going to have a hub in India and a hub in Africa, two fascinating areas for huge potential in entrepreneurship. And that's the power of Nobody as well. And I've got to say, apart from the investment, of which I feel is low risk because we're creating so many companies, and high potential output because of the quality of the people behind it, there's another benefit here of being an investor. I think that not a month goes by without Jason Kolker, that guy again, buzzing me and going, Daniel, I just met the CMO of the New York Yankees, and I think you and he should have a great chat. And he's got in his mind that I'm a sports guy, and he meets someone in sports, and he'll talk to them about me, and he'll talk to me about, and then he'll make a connection. There is enormous value coming to me from being involved in the studio because of what the studio is. And I always thought of myself as the guy who can connect a lot of dots around the world. You know, because I'm talking to a lot of countries, so I will see a startup guy in education technology in India, and I'll go, oh, you should speak to some guy in Canada that I spoke to yesterday. And I feel like I'm a good dot joiner. The studio is that times 1,000, you know, at least. And this is powerful. This is really powerful when you think that within the studio already today, and it's only going to go sky high, there will be someone of value that can add to your business. And that's the key in the world. You know, someone said to me, it was the CEO of one of the companies that I set up here. He's an amazing guy. And we were, you know, thinking about a problem about 5 years ago. And he said something that was so important. He said, Daniel, someone somewhere has the answer. It's just a matter of finding out who that is and getting the answer. And that is true about anything. And when we think about the power of Nobody, someone in Nobody in the network is going to know what we need to do. And that will only grow exponentially as time goes on, as we get more entrepreneurs in, more investors in, more builders in, led by this fantastic team, of which, you know, you are one of the main guys there. And this is one of the most exciting opportunities I've ever come across. Without a doubt.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. You know, and I think it's one of these things when you see that people are really buying into a community, a network of high caliber, quality people who really have good intent. There's everything that we want to create in the studio together, but so much of great business, great entrepreneurship is joining dots together or making these sort of non-obvious connections. But it's a 1 + 1 = 11 type of scenario. And I think, as you say, we're starting to see that already in the studio, even with the number of people that we have involved today. And that is only going to go exponential over time. And we're very, very excited about that. So look, there's lots of comments coming in here. People really inspired by hearing you share both your own knowledge and experience, but the kind of ethos of the studio too as well. And like really trying to dial in to create businesses and in every part of the world. I'm here in Manila in the Philippines. you know, a lot of the people even sharing comments here are dotted all over the globe and excited to see us open in Africa. We're excited to get there. Believe me, it's one of our top goals for the year ahead. So really for you, Daniel, what advice would you give to somebody thinking about maybe getting involved in Nobody Studios? If you were to sort of pass on some of what, you know, if you knew what you know today 2 years ago, like what would be the lesson you would have shared with some of yourself back then?
So I'll tell you what, I'm going to answer that question from two perspectives, one from an investor perspective and the other from an entrepreneurial perspective, because I am still both very much. So from an investor perspective, I think that any investor, let's say an angel investor or an institutional investor, this makes sense because of very diverse portfolio led by fantastic people. And, you know, you can have a look at the projections and see the sense behind the numbers and that progressive approach. But even as a smaller investor, non-institutional investor, the fact that we've opened up this crowdfunding, and by the way, I'm not a fan generally of crowdfunding the way it's normally done. You know, it's so often just a bit of a pyramid thing that serves only the people at the top. The way Nobody have opened up the crowdfunding is classic Nobody. It's there to serve rather than to lead. And this is a great opportunity. And, you know, I don't recommend, I go in investments with my tickets, whatever, and it's a very privileged place to be. I don't recommend to friends general things like this. It's a very individual thing. But here, where you can invest with minimum $100, I was telling all my friends, I was saying, you know, this is an opportunity to go into something that's low risk, have a piece of venture that you're not normally privy to. And not only should you see good ROI, it's still ventures, there's still risk, obviously. But not only should you see good ROI in the next decade or so, you'll get exposure to companies. You'll be getting updates on what's happening in the companies. And this helps, you know, fuel the mind and gets anyone's creativity going. So there's that benefit as well. So from an investor's perspective, being involved in Nobody at a minimal level is now open to absolutely anyone, pretty much. And you get the benefit of being exposed to this. From an entrepreneurial aspect, you know, if there's any entrepreneurs listening to this, we know that one of the biggest problems is not being able to focus on our business because we're trying to keep the lights on if we're early stage startup. And everyone, you know, I speak to founders, it's a constant stress. And if you're an entrepreneur and you have a good idea and you get accepted through the ideation lab in the studio, this is a dream for an entrepreneur. You come under the umbrella and the wrapping and the support of this fantastic venture studio called Nobody with unbelievable people to help and support you. You can focus on your business rather than thinking about keeping the lights on, because being an entrepreneur, especially a startup entrepreneur, is a pretty lonely place sometimes. It's tough. And I think this, you know, we all been there. It's not easy, you know. Trust me, that I told you about that first failure back in the south of France. That was one of the loneliest rides home I ever had, driving my old Nissan back from the south of France back to London. Wow, that was a tough journey. It's tough, you know. You're on your own, and here you're under the umbrella of a fantastic organization. So from an entrepreneurial point of view, there's huge benefit. From an investor point of view, there's huge benefit. It's an exciting place to be.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for, you know, sharing that. And, you know, you can see a lot of what you've shared already has really resonated with folks who've joined the show today. One of the highlights being somewhere somebody has the answer. And maybe, you know, there's a lot that rings through with even our ethos about being so crowd infused about everything that we do. You know, if we can connect the dots, if we can harness the power of community, our crowd, we're going to find answers to really tough problems and turn them into amazing businesses that have a great impact on the world. Daniel, look, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I'm sure we're going to have you on again in the future as we continue to do these series in the months, weeks, hopefully in years ahead. Thank you very much for sharing your own story with us. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to building more companies with you and what's ahead for us at Nobody Studios.
I can't wait. Absolutely fantastic to be on. Great to chat to you always, Barry. And I look forward to our next public performance anytime.
I think so. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.